Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 2. Here is our outline. We're going to first talk about some announcements really quick, but this is kind of the course structure that I like to take overall on the Tuesday session. I like to do an overview of the whatever work is happening that week. So this week is week 2 overview. So we're going to talk about this week's work very briefly today. And then tomorrow I'm actually going to do the presentation and actually do the work and show you kind of how I would put it together, just provide an example of that. So after that, we'll do the review. So everything from week 1. So Tuesday, I like to review things, do an overview, and then Wednesday, I actually like to show and demonstrate how I would put the project together. So that's more or less what you can expect for the rest of the class, but I always like to kind of break it down here as far as what exactly we're going to do. So we'll do a 10-minute break, usually about an hour into it, give or take. So an hour from now, and then continue with the reviews. So a lot of reviews. It's not just what I write in the feedback, but also a good chance to get some more reviews in this class. And I'm going to try to cover a lot of them. I probably won't cover everyone's, so you can actually email me if I didn't cover yours, and we can make some time for it tomorrow at the beginning of the class tomorrow. So, if you're in class, I try to do everybody's who comes to class and try to arrange for that. Unless and this is always an option, you can always send me an email and say that you'd rather not have yours reviewed in class. And that's also fine. Some people may feel like they're not really at that point. They don't want to do public critiquing, and there's no problem with that. I don't have any issue at all if that's what you want. But, send me an email either way. If you want to see yours and I didn't cover it, please send me an email and we can cover it tomorrow. If you don't, for any particular reason, and I obviously will not cover it in the session. So good things to know. Let's check out the announcements. I think that's all I have for I went over all 5 of these. Yeah. So after the break, we're going to continue with week 1 review. I don't know if I said that. I think I did. But let's go into the announcements. Christy Paulson's schedule is updated. Here's her week 2 flyer. So hours are, I believe, a little different from last week. Christy's, I know that a lot of people saw her this weekend, and she's a good resource, definitely helpful in putting projects together. So see her if you're, wanting some feedback. Maybe some of you are struggling a little bit this week. And, I think if you got below a B, you might want to get in to see Christy and just, ask her for some feedback, maybe just some more direction on your project before you actually submit it. She's really good that way as far as providing feedback and assistance, and can show you a few things that way. So we're going to, she's really good. Make sure you see her if you're having any trouble, and this is her updated schedule. You can email her, call her, Skype her, whatever is your preference, but get a hold of her if you're having any trouble. Okay, so grades with week 1 are up to date as of about what I recall, about 5 or 6-ish on, yesterday evening. So Monday evening, grades should have been grades were up to date Monday at 6. So if you handed in something today or even late on Monday, it might not be graded and it might not be figured into your grade. But if you did turn all your work in on time, then now is a good time to look at where you stand in the class. Because everything, including the anything that was submitted late on Sunday, or anything that was things like daily checkpoints, all that should be up to date. So now is a good time to just kind of have a look and see where you're at. And where you are as far as if you haven't turned the work in yet. There were a few people, well, there usually is, but a few people who had contacted me and said that they were going to get their work in, and then there's quite a few who haven't. So make sure you just stay on board with that. Just stay up to date with it. A lot of people get behind and finally have a hard time keeping up because these weeks move so fast. Everything is just kind of compiled into 4 weeks, and it can really get away from you quickly. So make sure that you stay on top of that late work. I know that a lot of people say they have quite a bit of going on with work or things like that, but it's good for you to let me know. But really the way that I work it more than anything is the sooner you can get it in, the better. So a Sunday submission's not going to have quite as many points taken off as a Monday submission. A Tuesday submission, not quite as many as the day before. And even by Wednesday night, you still won't, in most cases, get the full deduction. But after Wednesday, it's the 20%. And that's typically how I've been grading, doing the late deductions. And so something to keep in mind anyways, in terms of late work. All right, so that's it for the announcements for now. Remember, these are a good place to check, especially at the beginning of every week. Sunday, Monday, usually, you'll find new ones up there. So let's see, assignments. Let's talk about the assessment first. So this is assessment 2, brochure design. Again, I'll be putting together this project tomorrow, or some version of it. It might be kind of an express version. But I'll kind of go through the course or the steps on this project, and you'll be able to gather a little bit more exactly what I'm looking for. But again, as I say last week, you don't want to copy me exactly. And there was a few that did kind of close a little bit, but for the most part, nobody did. Nobody copied me exactly from week 1. So that's good. I like to see that you guys are putting together the work on your own and kind of figuring out kind of your own solutions to these things. And, that's not to say you might not copy the format or, maybe parts of the layout or something like that. But you definitely don't want to make yours look exactly like mine. And that's not the goal. So everybody knows that, I think, by now. And we didn't have any problems with that last week. So that's good. All right. So here, the brochure that you're going to do, and also the assignment. So the assignment's going to be like a map. All right, we got a mic on. Who's got their mic on? Okay, good. All right, so same folder you're going to use. You can download it on this one or here. It's the same thing. This link right here. That's all the information for Walmart. And they've got branded stuff. Why don't we take a look at that folder right now? We can check out what's going on in here. Did I just download that? I just got it like a few minutes ago. So it's here. There we go. So when you download that folder, like I say, both of these are the same, exact same links, same stuff. Just you're gonna get a zip file, click on that, opens up to Walking at Walmart will be the folder you're using. And here we've got approved typefaces. So you're gonna have to use these typefaces. One is Hand of Sean. It looks like this. It's kind of nested deeply in here. You can kind of see it. Get a little bit better view of that. For some reason it doesn't want to. There we go. No. So you can see that's Hand of Sean. This is, believe it or not, a Walmart font, but think about how Walmart might use it. Obviously, what do you think anybody who's in class right now, what do you think would be kind of the purpose of Walmart using a font like this? Using a typeface like this, if I want to be completely correct. Kid stuff, good guess. I think maybe like connecting to looking like it's handwritten, like it's got a personal touch. How about maybe kid stuff could work though if you're trying to appeal to kids, but for us and using it for the corporate identity, they're intending us to use it not just on kid stuff, but everything, or kind of across the board on this campaign, which is walking at Walmart. So it's not just for kids, but maybe for kind of a personal touch, I think is what we're looking at. Like it's almost like you can see the hand of Sean here writing these letters, kind of scribbling them out. They look messy. They don't look corporate at all. So I think it's Walmart trying to add a personal touch to this campaign, this Walking at Walmart campaign. So on the flip side, Myriad Pro, you see here, we've got open typeface fonts, and then we have, I'm not sure why we have 1 and 2. I thought that might be a true type one. But for some reason they're broken up into 2 folders, but we can see here, and a lot of you might already have this font, but you might not have all these different versions. So now you can have these versions if you didn't have them before. Maybe you've got 4 versions of Myriad Pro, but now you've got access to a bunch more. Everything from light to regular. But as you can see, this is more the corporate font. It's a little bit more conservative. Doesn't have that hand-drawn personal look at all, but it looks professional. So keep in mind that how you might use this. For example, make sure, I'll just tell you right now, it makes it easier. Don't use this in your body text. Use this for titles. Use this for maybe headlines. It could work for headlines. Use it conservatively. It's a wonderful font to use conservatively. I think, I've had students use it in body text, and that would just be a no-no for this font, using it in body text, unless it was maybe, I don't want to say no-nos, but just use your best judgment. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to want to use this in a body font because it's just too hard to read. It's scribbly. If you have a bunch of text, you're probably going to want to lean toward this. This is going to be much more readable, and we want our viewers to understand what they're reading. It's definitely always a goal, but we want this to kind of show kind of a personal touch, a nice kind of hand done. Somebody may have put their time into this a little bit more. It doesn't look corporate and cold like maybe this does as a typeface. Kind of looks a little bit, it's nice, but it's very official. And if we're trying to get away from that, adding that personal touch, well, Hand of Sean is a good one to use on this campaign. So I said titles, headlines, maybe, things that the typeface is going to be larger. Maybe a good size might be like more than 24 point, which would be typical display size text. So keep it 24 point or above would probably be a good kind of baseline to go by. If it's less than 24 point, maybe, question as to, well, is it still readable? Can I do something to make it more readable? Adding tracking, or making it all caps, or just maybe it's kerning, something something to make it more readable. I don't want to say, oh, you can't use it if it's below 24 point, but some of those rules are out there to kind of get a guideline out and stay within that range. And if it goes below that, you want to kind of question, well, is this still something I can read? Is this something that viewers will read? So a couple of nice fonts. These are the ones that you'll have to use for all the projects. You can't use other fonts in here. So this is kind of what it's like if you're working for a company and you've got a bunch of assets to work with. You'll have the company assets, and then you'll have different various project assets, and you'll kind of be taking from both folders, so to speak. I guess it depends on where you're working, what you're doing exactly, but a lot of people, almost always on this project, get the question, can we use other typefaces outside of these two? And you can't, because this is think of this as branded material. This is it won't go past marketing. You won't get your project checked off if you use anything but these two fonts. And you want to use them in a way that makes sense. You want to use them in a way that, like, I kind of explained already, and again, we'll keep working with that tomorrow. But Hand of Sean, for example, you don't want to use in body text. You don't want to use Hand of Sean in your disclaimers and anything where there's a lot of text. We'll use Myriad Pro for that. So things to keep in mind. Let's move on to color palette. So we've got these three colors, and those are the three colors that you'll want to use. I would say, let's say I'm the creative director on this, and if you want to use a few other colors, these are your main colors that you're going to want to use, but if you wanted to use a few other colors, we can open this up. You can. Let's say you want to mark, a red entrance or something. You can. Walmart actually does have a website where they give away these guidelines, and you can use the official red that they use. But if you think of this as like, now red's a color that I'm using, but I'm also using it just to I'm using it in a very minimal way. I'm kind of using it to like mark a door or something. And that's fine, but be really conscientious about how you use different colors that are outside of these three here, and the gray and the white. So that's what their brand, they're just saying, this is the brand, this is the colors that we use. So stick with those. They do have a website that actually does give more color guidelines. They have like a light blue, and you can use their guidelines there if you want. This might be a little bit limiting, but I think a lot of times you'll be kind of limited, and those limitations will allow you to be more creative in a lot of ways and solve problems more creatively. So I would recommend trying to stick with these three colors. I think if you're really finding it a challenge, you can go to the Walmart site where they have their brand available. And if that's still active, I haven't checked it in a while, I can maybe make it available in today's link and just link out to that. So for the most part, try to work with these, and then you've got that other backup if you need it. If you're really just disappointed with your project and you don't think it's really coming out as well as you'd like, maybe you'd want to use some more colors. And so long as you keep the extra colors minimal, even black, all these gray. It's probably about 60% gray, I'm guessing, down here that you can use. I use red, if you want to do those kinds of indications, that's fine. But, as long as these are your main colors that you're using, as long as we recognize that as the Walmart brand, then you'll be good on both projects. So both projects use this folder here that you'll download. So fitness walking brochure, this is what's going to go in your brochure. So that's all the text provided. Again, I'll be doing this project tomorrow. And project requirements. So that's just listing some more info that's on the trifold brochure. And I believe what you're going to do is take some of this for the large scale. This is the map that it's referring to. So we can open this one again. So this is what you'd have on the map, just that text. And you might even want to pull some of these other things. That's up to you. But what this is asking for is just, walking at Walmart overview paragraph, which is this, and store map with distances and departments marked. We're going to look at a store map in just a second. But it's kind of helpful that they provided all the text, which again would be how you, if you're working for Walmart on this project or working like at an ad agency and you were using Walmart's assets on this project, this is kind of how it would be. You'd get text provided usually in Word. Here's the Walking at Walmart logo. Now again, they're using the Walking at to add kind of a casual, personal feel to the logo. That's, make sure you use this actual logo in both projects. Here's a map example. These are just examples. I was asked emailed about using these maps in particular, and I really don't mind if you use another Walmart map. That's fine. If you want to use one that you take a photo of yourself, they're going to differ a little bit. They're similar, but space requirements and building requirements. Make sure that it's an official Walmart map, and I think you're good. So there's a couple here to get you started. You're not actually going to use this in your project. So this is just to show basically what it looks like. And then, what you'll have to do is vector trace this out, or this, whatever one you want. That one's probably going to take the least amount of time, but you could just put it in to Illustrator. That's the way I'd recommend doing it. Maybe if you prefer InDesign, and just trace these as vector paths here. But you won't actually be dropping the map in your map. You'll be making your own. And if you want to change it a little bit, that's fine with me too. As long as it basically looks like this, you don't have to have an exact replica of it. So Walmart photos, last but not least, providing 600 by 450. So a lot of these are kind of small, and they're not necessarily the same size or aspect ratio. So most of them are a similar size, but they're not the same size, and that would be another typical. Some of them are even the same, but it would be kind of a typical problem that most designers would have to solve. Is like, well, this piece is going to look better if I have all of the photos the same width and height. And a lot of the time it is. And then if you want to make one photo different, like let's say you want to do some portrait of somebody you want to call attention to, you make a square one, but all these others are rectangles. That's just one example of how you're kind of using the photos. In my case, what I'm talking about is the aspect ratio of the photos to call attention to themselves by just making them different heights. If you make a pattern and then break your pattern, that's graphic design right there. So if you've got kind of maybe two different sizes, right? So you got two different, well, I say sizes, but I mean aspect ratios, width to height, and then maybe you have one that's really unique. I think what I'm trying to say is avoid just using all of these as they are. Keep in mind things like, well, even exposure and even things like color correction. Make sure those look well put together in that brochure. One of the main things that I like to do is keep the aspect ratio the same and kind of work with that a little bit. If they're all the same, they look a little bit too generic sometimes, or at least they can. So maybe you want to do something like have a couple of different aspect ratios in there, or whatever you decide to do, make sure you do it consciously. Like this, for example, is 455. Just dropping that in the brochure as it is, you're going to have this one that is 384. So this one's longer. And this one's 450. You can see that in the size. They're all 600 pixels, so that's good. We've got the same, in this case, width, it looks like, on all of these. They're all 600 pixels on the width, but they vary on the height. But something that I would recommend doing is just making them all the same height. So they're all, well, the same width to height ratio is what I mean. You can see here 600 by 450, 600 by 466. That's one way you can make your brochure look a little bit more organized, because this photo right here, put together, put next to this one, depends on how you do it, but generally, you place those together and it looks kind of slapped together. 466, 374. So this one's not quite as tall, as high as this one. Now you put them both together, and they're all different. Every single one of them is different, and there's a lot of them that are different. It just tends to kind of lower the quality of the piece. So that's one thing I'd recommend looking out for, making all those photos more consistent. Thinking about the aspect ratio, maybe you want to do, like I said, a couple of different aspect ratios. Maybe you want to do some that are even vertical. But think about those widths to heights, and that's a really basic way to work with photos and improve your piece if you're making the pattern and breaking the pattern. So, let's say, for example, let me find one of these I really want to emphasize. I don't have any portraits, but maybe it's the starting line or something, if you're running. And so one thing I could do is make it larger. You can also edit, like you could put kind of an arrow or some sort of line in here, or even a finish line. You can Photoshop these however you want, really. If you want to make that up, I think that's a great idea if you want to do that. Let's say for the starting line, maybe it's, find a more interesting one. I kind of like this one here for the starting one. That was kind of interesting. Maybe this one, start here. Maybe we make this a square. Something. Or, it doesn't look like much of a starting line. This does look like a starting line. So maybe here, this could be a square, and I could say at the start, start here. But if you made this a square and everything else was a rectangle, this would really call attention to itself as the start. And you want that because the start is a really key place to start. It's like very important. So we want to show that one off a little bit. And just making it different from all the others, so it's the anomaly. But simply by just making it a square might be one way to do that. So that's just one idea, but consider those aspect ratios when you're working with these. I think a lot of students just get these photos and they think, these photos can't change. We can just work with them as they are. But I would recommend not working with them just as they are. I would recommend, thinking about how you might alter them, and especially working with that aspect ratio. All right, so we've covered all of this. Make sure you download that folder. You can do it from either one of these. And you work with everything out of here. Again, I don't mind if you work with Walmart Maps or some other resources, such as I mentioned colors, and that's mainly colors from their website. You can a few other shades of blue that especially that you might find useful when you're working with. But stick with this for the most part. Stick with what's in here. It also makes it easier, makes it simpler, but in some ways it makes it harder because it's a little bit more of a challenge to design with kind of limited things. Not always, but like I say, try to design with what's in here. If there's any kind of question, ask me about it. Like I say, if you want to use another map, that's fine. That was already asked, but that's the only question that's been asked so far. Colors, sure, but use other colors very sparingly. We want those colors that are provided to be our main colors. So anything else, use it in really small amounts, very sparingly. You should be okay. And better yet, just get other colors that you want to use, get it off their website. And, hopefully that website, from what I remember, is still around, and I can provide that link at the end, in the announcements with this class and put it up. All right, so that's it for now. Must contain the following 6 parts. It's easy when they spell that out, but we also have all this in this download. So we have all this in the Word doc that you download. Another little key thing here, for 5 points extra credit, produce your brochure and submit a photo of you holding it, much like an actual customer might. I'm not really sure how they're working that in there, because in the computer they just let you have 80 points. So maybe we'll have to tack that on the end somehow. Yeah, it is. I've never seen that one before. I think it's a good idea, but I'm not really sure how that one's supposed to work, because I can't just add 85 to the computer. Will just take out anything that's over 80, from what I understand, unless they change that. Maybe they changed it. But anyways, we'll figure it out. So if you want to take a photo of it, holding it like an actual customer might be cool. Get 5 points extra credit. So I don't know, maybe once we figure that one out, we'll apply that to your score. So anyhow, any questions on this one? You want to make a people of Walmart joke? What is it? Or are you giving it away if you tell me? I think jokes are okay. I think humor and design is great, especially in school. I think, as long as it's you keep it within reason, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be good. So I mean, I think humor and design is excellent. It gets people to pick up that brochure. It gets people to look. People always appreciate it, and I like it. So I'm going to say yes. I encourage it, but you know, just use your best common judgment and uh, nothing too off the wall, so to speak. You know, keep it as if you're actually working for them, and they might actually appreciate the joke because you know it would go well with what they're trying to do anyways, I guess. And that sounds fine. Yeah. So yeah, humor's encouraged. I want to encourage that, definitely. All right, so let's go to the walking map. So this is poster. It is 48 by 48, so this is going to be a big one. This is definitely a larger one. This is going to go on the floor and mark out this kind of running course that you're going to do, that people are being encouraged to do in the store to get exercise. And you might want to think of, you know, they give some suggestions in here, like, things that, you know, considering starting and ending points for your routes, and, you know, where might people buy things. Maybe you end at the beverage refrigerators or something. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. That's not probably the best example, but people might be out of breath. So they probably want items that would sell more at the end of the route. So I don't know what that would be. I don't know if anybody has any suggestions there, but let's say you begin at the bakery, so all the sweets, eat a bunch of donuts, and then go on a run. And then you end. Where would you end? Maybe you'd end sporting goods or something. Maybe end by the Bengay. There you go. Yeah. So small items. What about big items? What do you like? Maybe you get motivated and want to go on a camping trip, so you end up in the uh, area, you know, sporting goods, where you've got big canoes and kayaks and small boats, things of that nature. Outdoor, yeah, that's what I mean. Not sporting goods, but outdoor stuff. That'd be a good place to end because you get all motivated and amped, and you know, exercising makes you feel better and feel good. So you know, maybe you want to buy more stuff. Exactly. So maybe that would be, because those are big things that, you know, they make a lot more money on than just bottles of water and Bengay. So just a thought. But you know, think about that. It's not anything critical, but if you can work it in, why not? You know, you can take advantage of that, and always tends to work for them. You know, when you can communicate that, you know, having the course designed so that it ends in this area. Maybe they spend more money here. Yeah, it could be a loop. They could begin and end in the same area. That's fine. So backlit be like a plastic sign, so glow from the back. They'll be looking pretty cool. You can use both vector and images. Probably use mostly vector on this, but you can use images as well. And I think if you want to take some of your own photos of Walmart, I've had people do that, and it's turned out pretty good. So you could also do that. But you know, mainly look to that folder. You download that same folder here. look to that folder if you're going to get most of the photos. But if you want to take your own, I'm not opposed to that. So you can use InDesign or Illustrator. This project also, I'll create some version of it tomorrow. Lastly, you can Google, let's see, it looks like mall walking map. So if you need some inspiration on that. I actually have some past student projects. Maybe I'll bring those up during the break and look at those, give you some other idea on what some past students have put together as far as some of these projects. So let me make a reminder. To do that, I'll look that up on the break. So we've got about 15 minutes. That's pretty much all on this. Any questions on the assignment? Okay, no questions so far. Let's go into the last week, so week 1. So I'm going to try to get everyone in class. I downloaded most of them, not all of them. So let's see. Bennett, Barksdale, let's see. Got Ramon Williams. We'll check this one out. All right, Acrobat has to launch. Here we go. So cool background going on here. But I like this. I think you have some interesting visual effects going on here. It's fun. You've got kind of a outer space theme going on with the background and the Earth. I think I felt that it was a little bit odd to have the Earth shaved off here, but I think it seemed like you're doing it for space, so I kind of got that. I almost want to see the Earth as round, or it's hard to identify with it, but it's all right. I think it works. I see what you're going for. So it's kind of, I'm guessing, just to kind of take a little bit more space or conserve space a little bit. But really, I mean, all this is good. I think the typography works. I think you're getting a little bit close on some of these, these areas, and just consider your white space and how you might space those out a little bit more. Now maybe Europe could move over, and then we'd have more space here. A little bit more breathing room. That's really close there. And I mean, I do think it works overall. I think it's good. I think it's interesting. You've got a really good visual dynamic going. I like the concept, and it's interesting to look at. So that's good. I think up here, maybe a little bit, just work, watch how you work with white space. I think up here, we've got quite a bit of space here, but these feel really like a little cramped. And I'm thinking maybe you could make these a little smaller, maybe the text like 1 point size smaller, and the globes even a little smaller, and then you can make all these fit in here a little bit more. But overall, I think it came together well. So questions, comments? You like how the Earth is rotated on each? Yeah, you're welcome, Ramon. Yeah, it's good. I think it turned out nice. Not really sure what uh, she's saying with the Earth rotated. It's actually, oh, okay. Now I see what you mean. I do see that detail. Okay. Yeah, that is good. I didn't even notice that. It's actually great that you noticed. Glad you noticed. Is it Kirsta? Kay. Okay, cool. All right, thanks, Kay. Good, good call on that. Yeah. So if you notice, each of these is different position of the globe. You didn't just take the same one and drop it in all these places, all 7 places. It's actually rotated, so we see this continent where it would actually be, and that's awesome. That's great. I'm glad you noticed that. So, any other comments? Maybe in here the yellow is a little hard to read. Could do maybe a drop shadow on that or something to pop it out a little bit more. It's being a little nitpicky, but if we're here to improve, that's just how can we improve? But yeah, I think it's great overall. Has a Star Wars feeling to it. Yeah, it does kind of with the glow and the tech. It's pretty cool. All right, so awesome job on that one. Let's do. I want to do everybody who's in class before we go on break, but there might not be time. We'll see. It's hard to find names in this. So Sandy, let's find yours, or Kay, let's find yours, or Breezy, let's find yours. Lilac. There we go. Cool. All right, good deal. So yeah, I like this one. I like your images. I like the earth back here and the soft kind of gray on white, really subtle. I think the only thing that I remember mentioning on this one that I mentioned in the feedback that these underlining kind of strokes with the crayon seem like a bit much. Like maybe they could be thinner. Maybe they could be some sort of a bar graph or something that might actually tie in a little bit more. I guess one thing you could think about is if it's not, directly related, directly doing something for the design, then consider not using it. Or I should ask you, why did you choose that kind of rough pastel or chalk line in there to underline those? Yeah, I like the typeface too. Looks like Rockwell. Okay. So they are kind of arrows. They're I can see what, okay, I see what you're thinking. They start here and then they kind of get rough. So I can see how they're doing that. They do lead your eye. Very strong though, because that's the main thing that I notice, except it runs a little bit counter to your overall theme. I mean, it's like that's the one of the things that first stands out to me is that the chalk marks. What could you use maybe in this instead that would run more in alignment with your theme? You're going global, Earth, continents, internet usage. So you could do something. I can't probably create a graphic fast enough, but like what if you did, let's say we're going for technology. Maybe I'll make a new file here. And it'll do something really quick. So if it's technology, and I see what you're going for with this chalk mark that fades out. So what if you did something like this? And I would have to work on this graphic probably longer to make it work really well, but I'm trying to replicate that idea that you have with the chalk mark, only doing it with kind of something that like mimics what you're working with a little bit more. So here, and I think that might. So if you underline it with something like that, and instead of it's almost like data packets or something, to symbolize, and we can make this longer. So I think now that you mention it, I think that your idea was good on using this to kind of lead your eye. I think that does work. Starts here and then kind of leads your eye to the next. But what if you're keeping it within the theme, internet, technology, computers, global, Earth, all of those kinds of things. As soon as I saw the chalk, I was just like, wow, that's really strong. And it seems like, why is that? It seems really out of place because nothing else is tying into it. But what if we kind of dropped something like that in there? If I did not spend long on that graphic, but hopefully you get the idea, because I like your idea of tying it to eye movement and moving your eye along to the next thing. So something like that might work. Certainly not the only thing that would work, but kind of does that same thing where it like starts kind of dense and breaks up. Yeah, breakaway kind of thing. So I don't know, you could make them like that too. It's still, I made these as squares, pixels to represent pixels, but you could also just break it up like that. Now it still looks like data packets. It still has that sort of working feel to it. So that's just one idea, but I thought this was good. I think overall that was the one thing that stood out that got my attention. But sometimes things like that, one little element, like I like what it's doing, but it's not quite tied to the rest of the theme, right? So if maybe you replace that, and that's not the only thing you could do. There's many other things you could do there, but maybe you could do like a bar graph or loader bars or whatever those are called. And you see a lot of those in the computers. I'm surprised I didn't see any of those. Nobody used them. But those are kind of fun icon to create. loaders. You always see the graphics of that circular thing. But anyhow, yeah, I like what you put together on this. Looks good. And, you know, even this use of the small graph, that's great. Overall, that works. I think, you know, again, a lot of issues that maybe, probably overall, I think most people had a little bit of a problem on this one with spacing and weren't really quite looking at the white space as much as they could have been. So watch that spacing. Remember that when you're doing design, a lot of times a good way to look at it, I think, is probably the best way to look at it is that you're designing the white space as much as you're designing the well, solid parts of the design or your main elements of the design. Think about that in-between space. Definitely don't ignore that in-between space. And here it looks like we're a little close here, but you know, always be considering those spaces in between your elements, not just the elements, but those spaces in between the elements are just as important, if not more important. And some people like to say they're more important so that you make sure you focus on those when you're doing your design. But you know, they're probably just equally important. I won't say more, I'll say equally important. Positive and negative space. Yeah, and that's a challenge. I think she just mentioned for people watching this on the chat, she just mentioned that had a hard time placing the names of the countries against the map, and I can see that because a lot of it, that's true, because a lot of these, you know, if you're placing it on the map, you know, some of the spacing looks a little bit off, and that's definitely one of the challenges. I think, but you know, you always have to think, well, how can you work with those challenges? Or most of the time, you know, you could have gotten away with not using a map back there, but I like your map back there. So I think the only one that was really, the only real issue that I'm seeing on this as far as spacing goes is probably that, just feeling a little too close. Maybe this could be, well, maybe a little smaller, this, so that could help with some space on that. Could nudge that up. And they're just minor things. I don't think they're anything too major. World total. This one, I noticed that's centered. All of these are left aligned, which is your standard alignment. You want to have things most often be left aligned. So if you could do left alignment on that, that would help it. And also even this, left align, generally stick with one alignment on a project. And you know, even on these, we've got center alignment on those. Do left alignment and see if that visually brings that together a little more. You know, something worth experimenting with anyway. Maybe you might not like it. Maybe you might decide you want to do all center. But, or just, you know, be aware that you don't usually want to mix your alignments, your text alignment. So again, a general rule, if you have a good reason to break it, you can always break out of that and do something different. But so this one was on purpose. It's not bad. I think it's a little bit, it might be just a little better if it was left aligned, but again, something to experiment with maybe. Here, definitely see if you like these, or even if you can keep them on one line instead of two lines. It might be a little bit of a challenge, but anyway. overall, I think it looks good. So any other comments on this one? Yeah, and the left alignment will just unify that a little bit more. And sometimes, yeah, you want to break out of that. I don't know if this I would recommend breaking out of it here. Maybe if you do want to break out of it, you could get away with maybe justified. So you make that world total a little bit larger, and then it looks justified here. You could do that since it's different. And then it would still look like it had that left alignment. So that's one thing you could do. Maybe make it even more different. Maybe make this all caps or something, or something else a little bit more in contrast to the rest of this. In fact, I just noticed Africa is all caps. I didn't notice that before. So you probably wouldn't want to have that in all caps. You want to treat that like the rest of those. Yeah, you could use the same typeface as the header, sure. This is another interesting one. I kind of like that. Good for your title. But I think this is good. I might just justify it so it lines up. Just has this more unified look to it. But nice job on that. And let's see, let's go to Sandy, or we got Ramones, we got Breezy's, Sandy, and Kay's. Do you guys see yours in this batch? Like I said, I didn't download all of them, but I did get most of them. That one. Okay, cool. All right. You got another interesting background going. Good stuff on that. I like the that kind of a glowing blue line, high-tech digital looking background. Again, it's kind of sci-fi, which is definitely relevant to this. We're talking about computers and the new age and how it's grown in the last 12 years. Anything technical and digital looking, outer space, sci-fi, I think those are all great choices on this project. And I like how a lot of people did that. You could have done it conservatively, but I do like what I've seen from a lot of people. So this kind of effect is a neat one. I like it. So here, let's see what I should let everybody else talk first. Why don't you guys pitch in? What do you like? What don't you like? There's always something of both, pretty much always. So yeah, it's not too busy. Not too busy. Get some more space here. So what was this here? This was this seems like it's taken up a little bit much room. Just that blue area. Like maybe that could be smaller. So there's that. I think she did a decent job. Like here we're talking about having the map and that limitation. Well, this is one way where she solved that Problem, just cut out the continents and put them as backgrounds. They're a little hard to see on this, but at least we can see. You know, I get it. I can read it, so it's all right. Typography's nice. It's good. It looks consistent. One of the challenges, I might try to get Latin America on one line and North America on one line. North America would be, looks like the longest one. So a lot of times when I'll have something like this, I'll look through all of the titles and say, all right, what's the longest? I'm going to base my font size on what the longest one is. So North America in this case. And this is an okay solution too. You just made it 2 lines, but it seems like, you know, Middle East just reads much easier as one line. So I think that would be a minor thing, that if you get those on one line, North America and Latin America, it might read a little bit easier, might be a little bit better in the layout, because you look at the layout, if you got one line here and then 2 lines here, it's a little bit chunky over here with the 2 lines compared to the rest of these. Very minor thing though. And I think the thing that I gave you feedback on is just up here, kind of the same thing of, you know, consider spacing, consider the leading here feels a little bit far apart, maybe grouping those 2 a little bit closer, maybe lining those up so they're, you know, kind of in alignment here, so you've got a margin. What happens when you're in like a box like this, they'll call it inset margin is the term for it, but that just is set a margin all the way around this whole box and stay within it. So it's kind of like let's call it inset margin, kind of like a frame or something like that. You can have it different, have a different spacing of the inset margin on all 4 sides, or you can have it exactly the same. Up to you. It depends on what you want. But I would just work on the spacing of this little area in here, pulling these in so they line up, putting less leading, just space between those lines. And then maybe kind of grouping this one. I might, you know, this could work how it is too. The world as of 2012. So it's centered, maybe, I don't know, consider a different treatment for that as well. Or maybe it works if these here are lined up underneath it a little more. If they're right under that, then this might work okay. But you'd have to play around with that a bit. All right, a couple of comments that I missed as I was talking here. So let me go back. Oh, you did use the chart tool. Okay. Yeah, that thing's, I don't think that's been updated in over a dozen years or something like that. So it's definitely a relic from the past. Those graph tools in Illustrator, they're not very fun. They're not, I'm unaware that they've been updated in the last 12 years or so, or at least not very much. And they're always just, they don't do very, you can do a lot better job than a lot of these data graphs in Illustrator. So pie chart, yeah. Let's see, that was, so a lot of times you could just, you know, do them yourself and you probably have better results than what the tool in Illustrator is going to give you. At least I've always thought so. And yeah, it does throw off the spacing. Like, try to even work with a lot of those text alignment in once you do the graph, and you're stuck with whatever Illustrator spits out, which is, I just, you know, again, it's like, it's got its uses, and I don't want to say, you know, don't ever use it, but it's definitely a limited use. And 9 times out of 10, you can do just a much better job with it and probably spend less time fiddling with that particular tool, because it seems to have a mind of its own. So any other stuff on here? I think it looks good overall. Maybe a little bit more spacing, and how could we get more? Again, I would say design that white space. It's as important as the positive elements. Positive and negative. Think of both of those things. You know, and it maybe next design that you do, think about more negative space than positive space. You know, I said, well, you know, that none is more important necessarily than the other, but maybe if you need to kind of focus on, you know, working with spacing, then focus on make negative space more important on your next design. So do your design, think of, that's kind of challenging, but think of that negative space and design more with that than anything else. Anyway, something to consider anyway. But I think that's going to make the, you know, the proximity, some of these things, you know, there's a lot of space down here. How you can group these, how you can, I always like to say, go through the four that we always talk about, 4 design principles: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Alignment and proximity are big with infographics. I mean, they all are, but definitely alignment and proximity you've been working with a lot of. And if you can look and see, like, any kind of alignment will suggest a connection. And so, you know, when we look at these, it's like, you know, these are kind of in alignment here. Do that. Alignment here, alignment here. And maybe this could be in alignment with this, even though it's not, it doesn't have to be, but sometimes when you see those opportunities, you can always ask yourself, well, you know, could I align that here? Could I align this little section with something over here? And you just want to kind of look at your overall project and ask yourself, proximity and alignment, are everything kind of placed, and you know, am I able to read it fast, and is everything placed where it should be? Can I group things a little bit more? Think of CRAP, crap, contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. All right, nice work on that. One more. Let's do Sandy's. I think if I have Sandy's here. Sandy, do you have yours available? There we go. Cool. All right, so last one before we go on break. We're kind of going over time, but that usually happens. You know. Any mention on this? Anybody? You know, a lot of these, we talked about this before, and it's the spacing, and I see it's the same kind of issue we ran into here with those continents in back, and where do we put these little information blocks? So one person we'll try to find here in the next part, but he kind of solved it by taking a line and drawing a line here and this pointing to the continent. And so the line comes out of the continent. So he could, that was his solution, so he could kind of place these a little bit more. So we're not just having to lay it right over the where the continent is. So that presented a spacing challenge. And I liked, for some people, for others, it wasn't too much of a problem. They were able to work with it. But here, you know, we're getting a big kind of white hole right in here. This one, not so bad, but again, it's like here, and then these are really grouped quite a bit. So when we think about how might we kind of reorganize these, One way would be maybe taking these characters and kind of placing them like they did here. So below, maybe it's below and to the right. So that's another solution. You can visually place your elements in a slightly different place. The other thing, like when people will see all of these characters, all the icons, then we look at these guys and they're really small. So since that is different from all the others, since that's the anomaly, you say, well, why is that one smaller? That's going to come up for some. For some people, clients will almost always bring it up. For some people viewing it, why is Latin America, Caribbean small? There's not smaller people there. But they might be going, well, why is that? Why did you make this smaller? So probably just to save space. But then you'd want to make all of these others small so that we had this consistency going, unless you had a really good reason to do that, obviously. So space was a challenge, and trying to mix the spacing with the background maps. I understand that. That's definitely, I actually had my own issues with that when I did the presentation last week. I remember, but every time there's a challenge, you just have to think of other ways you can work with it. My method was just kind of being really loose in terms of where you place the information. I figure, it's in the general vicinity. It's not a problem, but your client might come back and say something like, well, this isn't exactly where the continent is. It's a little bit more over here. And if you do that, then things are getting bunched up and the spacing doesn't look right. So next you got to figure out, well, how do I solve that problem? I can take off the map and we can just break up the continents like, it was done on the last one. One of the solutions I liked was taking just a pointer, put a line by it and point it to the continent. That could also work. Actually, a couple people did that. So you got an arrow that goes to it. So there's always going to be, placing elements, and she's doing that here, and I do like that. I don't think you have to always place them to the side, but if you kind of divvy it up like you did here, this is good. Some are to the side, like that, and some are below, and that's just fine. But this one feels a little bit too close to these ones up here, so I might take these guys, put them down here, maybe even, again, they look too small compared to these guys are really big. So make sure those are all the same size. Australia, it's good that they're right on the country, but, match this a little bit more with the white space and try to bring this probably in, even if you brought this so that it was right over here. We'd be right over here. So we'd be working with that space a little bit more. It depends. If this was down here, it might, but think of that white space, juggle that white space, make it work. Down here, you need to either wrap that with that round corner, so you wrap it with the globe, or just indent it, give it some more space. I do like that wrap idea quite a bit if you're able to do that, but obviously you don't want things buttoned into your elements like that. It might have just been something that was last minute, or she didn't have enough time to adjust that, or wasn't quite sure how to do it. But if it was like a really quick thing, you could have just indented it maybe about that much, so it would look like that. And that would be perfectly acceptable. But here, with it, kissing the side of the globe area here, you don't want that. It would look cool to have the rounded right side. That would be fun. But hey, if you're pressed for time and trying to do that with Adobe's text tool and running into all kinds of problems, another solution might be to just give it a little margin, run it here so it's not touching this. You know, some of those things, it's like, if you have time, do it. If you don't, figure out another solution for it. So that would be the main thing. I think that's really all I have to say with that one. You know, watch backgrounds. Last thing I'll mention, watch background. This isn't too bad, but this dark area is getting a little bit busy, kind of hard to read on this text here. So that darker area against the text, a little bit tough. And now I notice that last line has a lot more space. You want to sometimes the text tool, if you put your cursor on this last line, like your last line here, and then hit return, it'll nudge this last line up. It's kind of weird. I think I notice it a lot in InDesign will do that. It's just a bug. But if you put your cursor on that last line, hit return, this won't happen. It's a weird thing. Both InDesign and I think Illustrator do that as well. You just put this too much leading on the last line, which you don't want. All right, so that's all on that one. Unless anybody else has any comments on that one, and looks like we're way past our break time. So we'll do let's do a 10-minute break. 3:35, 3:36, let's say, as we'll come back here. Any other last-minute comments on this before we wrap that up? We got everybody that's in the class project, so that's good. Got a little bit more critiquing there. I'm going to choose the other ones kind of randomly and just talk about some of the ones that I wanted to talk about and share. So that's what we'll do when we come back. We'll also look at the assessment as well. So if there are no questions, comments, we'll see you at, looks like 3:36. All right, let's continue. Make sure I'm screen sharing. All right, question by Breezy, I didn't see till we went on break, was how do you get that to conform to that globe? So in Illustrator, I have that on open. In InDesign, it's similar. You just use the box, the bounding box. I could probably just use this. So here, let's see, what's a good way to, good tool to use? Maybe I'll just use, this one's actually the newer. I'm just gonna do it the old school way. Put a point there, bring this in, and then make it round. Probably depends on if it's a perfect circle, but now you have that. I just put the text in there and use the area text tool. So it would be like this one here. Click on the path and so it would go like that. You can to show the point. So on this here, you just make your own. Question was, how do you make text tool do that? So if we're talking about trying to make those continents wrap around here, just make a area like a box. Same basic way in InDesign. If you want to do that, just make a area and then use the area type tool. Just make a box and then click in the area. And you and it just becomes a normal text block, but it's controlled by that. So that's how you do it. Probably, if I wanted that to have a border, I could do something like so, and you never, well, you can a little bit, but like, let's say that you wanted that blue border here. I mean, you can always like enlarge it, and it doesn't look so bad here. But if you notice, when you enlarge it, that no longer stays the same. So do you guys know what tool you'd use to do this so that this stays the exact same proportion as that? You guys can hear me, right? Everything recording, everything screen sharing. So what I do is here, go path and then offset path, and then just make it a little bit larger. Click the preview, let's say maybe a little more than that. Let's go 16, looks good. So now you got an extra copy that I don't need. But it keeps that same ratio so that that's exactly the same. The border is not going to change. And like white arrow tool, let's say I need more. Anyhow, that's how you would do it on that globe. So that's just a question asked during the break about how to do this. If you wanted to get this round effect and want to line it right up with that edge, just area type tool and create your own box that you want it to go in. All right, let's look at some, because I mentioned this earlier, we're going to look at some maps or some projects from earlier. So we'll just look at some previous student projects, their interpretation, how they did the map. This was, notice they redid all of the, so they did vector on all of these. Now, some of these are a little rough, but overall, this was kind of good. I think I like the people that they put in here. It's a little bit hard to understand. There's no legend for like what exactly is this dotted walking tool. So, they weren't as specific as they needed to be here with, it's a really large 48 by 48 inch map. So that's kind of challenging to view things in here, but this needs some sort of legend. Like, what are we looking at? If you're going to spell out this walkway, what exactly is the yellow line? Is that the easiest? What exactly is the green line? Is it the middle? Blue would probably be the easiest if that's the inside track. You're not walking as much. And it's short, so you just go and do this short little one. But we don't have any kind of indication for what that is, and they're also missing the text for the write-up. So, they did use the right colors. I like their characters that they use down here. They've got them, this would be where the brochure is going to go. So I did like some aspects of this. You are here, that works, the little spark thing. But a few things, a few issues that they're missing some content and need a legend, because we can't just show a dotted line here and not, say this is the easiest route. This is the hardest route. This is the longest route. You got to make something up that shows what these dotted lines are. So anyways, this guy showed it. We've got beginner, intermediate, advanced, and it's okay. He used like a kind of a red-orange to show the advanced track, and we've got him winding through the grocery. Pretty good idea with, going back and forth on the aisles. And, this one really works. If you want to go all the way through the store, I probably would have had him continue all the way over here and just do the whole thing. But he just had him go through grocery and apparel for advanced, for intermediate, all of home goods, auto care. I mean, this one almost seems like it's more or about the same, at least distance wise. And then beginner, here he's got this. So there's the challenge. Some of the challenges, I like to talk about that. Like, what are you going to be up against? Well, crowding again, and how much information you can pack in within these little aisles. So what might be a way that you would solve that crowding or potential crowding problem? Well, if you have at least three different areas, I think that's, beginner, intermediate, advanced. That's probably about right. If you wanted to do a ultra advanced or a super beginner, or, something that you wanted to add to this, you just need three, but, you can do more if you'd like. I'm sure you can come up with some other ways to approach this. But yeah, that's one of the challenges. You're going to get a lot of overlapping. How are you going to overlap those? Are they going to look good? Or are they going to look busy when you do the overlapping? You might want to consider space between here. Maybe more space than it had on the original map, because that will allow you to kind of work with that space and work with your colors within these areas and the aisles. I do like how they did the 3D here. They just kind of added that drop to it. I think they did that themselves. I don't think they used a tool or anything. But yeah, I like that they did spell it out. As far as I know a little bit more about what these lines are, what they represent. They're also, though, missing the write-up content. So some goods and some bads here. This one has the write-up content, so that's good. Just talking about health benefits and just some basics. It's not too much text. It's just, if you're standing there looking at a map that's on the floor, you're not going to want to stand there too long and read paragraphs of text. I think this is the limit, and this is kind of pushing it. I think how many people are going to stand there and read this whole thing? Maybe some people will, but really any more than that, you just have way too much text on there. But you got to have it. That's just part of we'll just call it client wishes, client guidelines. We got to have that on there somehow. Got some fun characters. Again, using the colors, but we've got one that's outside of that. I'm not sure. I can't remember why she used that one as a different color. I forget what she had in mind for that, but you notice we're using all of the Walmart colors, and it's enough. We just got those three. And marketing departments will appreciate that, because they don't have to keep coming back to you saying, what's this color? Why do you use this color? We don't have this color. You have to use just the branded colors. And they will. That's what they'll keep on coming back and saying. If you keep using colors that you think are fun and just creative, a lot of times when we're working with brands, we can't just add anything we want. You have to go by their guidelines. And like I say, Walmart has more than just those three colors, and I'm not sure why she added that orange, but maybe that was supposed to be an ending place. But she's got, I like the way she's labeled this: 1 mile, half mile, quarter mile. So instead of beginner, intermediate, advanced, she did the 1 mile, half mile, quarter mile. I think that's a pretty good idea. And did a dotted line through here. I'm not exactly getting why there's two. Okay, because it starts here and then loops around. That's why there's two, but it's kind of confusing because wait a minute, this guy has 2 start points. And this guy has 2 start points, but the green guy only has 1. So that was a little weird. So maybe what you could do is rather than run this down all the way to touch them, it just kind of stops here. And that indicates an endpoint, and that stops here. So that, they start. You just have 3 guys and 3 start points. So I would have probably figured that one out a little more. But I do like what she's got here with the different quarter mile, half mile, 1 mile. That's pretty good. A few little things that she could work on with alignment. Like maybe, this is centered up here. Might work better over here. Maybe, maybe not. A lot of these things, I just have to see them. But we've got a good left edge going on here. Then we got this down here that kind of throws things a bit. So maybe something you could do is put some filler thing right here. Like maybe even it's just that. Doesn't indicate anything. Line this up over here. And now we've got a nice kind of alignment going on over on the right. Instead of this, which seems kind of pushed far in. And then we've got this here. It just feels a little awkward. Not that it's totally wrong. It's just like when you look at some things, well, that probably could be figured out a little more. And the centering of this mark, it doesn't look centered. If she's going to center that you have to account for things like the spark. That little visual at the end, is making it kind of seem like it's not centered. So that may be why I'm not wild about it being centered. Things she could do is make it smaller in this area or even enlarge the blue area so that's smaller within this area, and maybe just visually, so it looks right visually, just move this a little bit to the right. Or like I say, we get a hard line going here and just line everything up toward the left. So there are always many different solutions. And a lot of times I'll just toss out one and think, that one, I'll try that. And then I'll do it and then I won't like it. That happens a lot. That's part of design, I think. Even when you've done it for years, it still happens that you're not going to just call it and do it every single time exactly what your first idea was. In fact, more often than not, your first ideas don't hold. A lot more often than not, I find. And you're constantly adjusting, changing, and that's just part of the challenge. But it is fun, I must admit, and I think it's, again, maybe something that I'm just noticing down here really quick that also, could we put something down there or some sort of slug even, that slug being just like a sort of placeholder that's not as important here, but definitely on your vertical where your text is. Those kind of things that could also work. And if it's something like some abstract graphic of these guys walking in here, anything, and then it could kind of work. But my point is, you're going to want to try a lot of things. I still try a lot of things, and it's really normal to have an idea and not have it work out. And when that's the case, don't worry about it. Just try something else. Keep trying things till you like what you have. You think it's a fit. And that's a lot more normal than just hitting it out of the park. And I think even people have been doing it for years, like some of these rock star designers that have been doing it for I don't know, Stefan Sagmeister, David Airy, and some of these people. I mean, even you read interviews with them and they don't necessarily get it right the first time. Welcome, Connie. So try again. Always trying stuff out. That's a good thing. Let's look at this one. Obviously, not sure why I brought this one up. It's very basic and we've got a lot of problems with it. So these arrows, obviously that's too much going on here. I think they're experimenting with, you know, brushes in Illustrator or something like that. Got a little carried away. We're, you know, not getting the spacing we need here, but you know, they did get their right up. Beginner, intermediate, advanced. You know, probably a lot of everyone that I showed also had their brochure on the map, which you can do that. That's an easy way to go. You don't have to. You can just, it could be, in theory, in a stand on its own. It's near the map. You don't always have to put this on the map. All of these that I showed, students put that on the map. So they did go by the guidelines for the most part, and it's fine. Like if they did different colors for this, but I probably would have either kept the same colors or just made them smaller, so they didn't have this big area. They're just quite a bit smaller, and that green is different, but you know, it should be the same or really different green. So you don't have to, like I say, use 100% branded colors as long as they're used in small quantities. Or you can use their colors from the website. All right, so that's it. Just wanted to show a few of those projects from previously. So anyhow, let's get back to looking at the week 1 assignments. I want to take a look at some assessments as well. I like this one, but it's too busy. I think maybe we could try to make this one work just a little bit more. If I can open it, good. So sometimes I can work with this. It doesn't look like I can. But what I was going to say is even the leading on this, if you were to work with that a little bit, old version of Illustrator. So the leading was a little bit tighter on this column. I think that would do a lot. Leading could be tighter here on this last line. We'd have a lot more room. I kind of like the spacing over here. We got the title, and in this case, the white space works below it, in my opinion. It just gives us some nice breathing room. With the world, this graphic, and right up at the bottom, I think it works overall. Just over here is just too spaced out, and we're just running too close to the margins. So the result is that it's looking a little bit too busy. If we adjust that leading, especially on this last line, I think you could get a lot more space over here, and that white space would give us some breathing room, which would allow this to actually work pretty well, I think. Colors work, just the leading, the typography. Typography is a good fit. I like the typeface they chose. But just some of how that's typeset will do wonders for this, I'm sure. All right, let's go to another one. Let's try to see a few that, this one looks good. I like the colors on this one. So here again, we talk about the solutions, and this is all the same as far as the circle. Then we pointed to the continent, but you could move the circles around, have these things kind of swivel or pivot, and have these placed in different areas. So I do like the colors on this one. I like the layout, the simplicity. I really like what they put together. For critique, I don't have a whole lot to say. Maybe just watching the spacing and button up against that edge a little bit too much. Think, well, how would you fit that in there? Like I say, I like to start with the item that's going to have the most text and then size that one first. So Latin America / Caribbean, going to be by far the most text in this case. I got to make my circles and my typeface work for that amount of text, because the rest of it, I might try and see what one looks like with Asia. It doesn't have very much text, but I have that to work with as a range. I can typeset those first. That way you don't run down the road and then run into this problem later where you've got all this really long line and it barely even fits in that circle. So one thing you can do is just take your longest and your shortest and try to see typography. How does it work? How does the font size work? How does that work within your shape? And kind of take it from there. But really, it's not too bad. I think it just could use a little bit of adjustment. Maybe these circles, maybe a tad bit larger. Not very much. Overall, it's a pretty nice project. I like how it turned out. All right. Got some good ones in here. I can't cover all of them, obviously. This one was kind of good. I like the solution that they came up with here again. Kind of this line and a circle. And that way, they can pretty much space these out however they wish. So I liked their solution on this, especially on the map. On this part down here with the growth, it just kind of felt tucked away down in the lower corner a little bit much. And it feels like we could work out something better down here. Now, this isn't bad. This is a little close to the edge down here. But, maybe if you even did something like this and treated this as its own area. So maybe you could even take the 7 continents in columns. And here, if you got a lot of horizontal space, and then this, and then, so you had 1, 2, 3, 4 columns that you could actually work with, or something of that nature. And that way you've got kind of a nice map area that's fairly clean. And then this area as well. But it's worked with almost as you would with a website. So you've got columns underneath it, 4 columns. But here it just seems like if you look at it, that it's just kind of stuck in here, just kind of placed and doesn't quite know where it is. This is okay, but especially this just feels like it could have a better place. And it's not like I'm saying, well, that's wrong, but there's probably a better solution for that. If it looks odd, looks a little weird, then consider that you're not seeing a better solution. So for this one, I just would say one solution might be to make those columns. well. All right, let's do at least one more here. Saw one that was good, like that one. Let's do this. All right, so again, we got those kind of map icons, which is great because we kind of look at those map drop icons now that indicate where we're at. South America, that little thing disappears, so we've got an inconsistency. So maybe make that a dark gray instead. Let's switch something on here that makes it look like all of these others. That'd be one thing. These guys look like they got a little clogged up. I think I can see what he's doing with the computer, but I think what you probably want to do, I'm not sure, like, you see that little point right there? I think it just might be an Illustrator fill issue or something like that. But these look nice, but I think what you'd want to do is it's almost like this was stroked instead of filled. I think what you're trying to do with filling these would work a little better if it was filled instead of stroked. They look a little bit just kind of heavy and like they're a mistake or something happened here. And they're not really consistent. Because here we've got the screen filled in and here other parts of that computer filled in. So these icons here look good though. So anyways, I'm also not 100% sure, why there's different amounts here. I think I know they're kind of representing it with that, but they're representing internet users and population. So that's good. I'm kind of not getting that from the icons. I am a little bit, but it seems again like you could do something different there to make your point a little bit more known on the population and internet users. And even if you took these and put them next to or to the side of this, that would be one solution. But it's almost like it's a little bit of a struggle to kind of get what he's after here with the icons. It's a good start, I think, but a little bit hard to interpret. All right, this one from June 30th, I'd probably put down on the next line. Kind of seems weird to run it out over here, and it's also a little tough to read. But overall, I like it. I like the icons in general. I work with those a little bit more. Map is also one problem. You wouldn't want to have that chunky and pixelated around the edges. That would be a problem. So you want to have anything that's pixelated avoided. Last but not least, nitpicky, I know. We'll just wrap it on this one like that. One single word right there, orphans and widows. You want to avoid those. But that's about it on this. I think overall it's not a bad start on this. Some good ideas going on, but definitely a few things you'd want to fix. All right, so that is all for today. Tomorrow we'll go over, actually do this project, and I'll put, as I say, some version of it together, kind of step by step. And we'll follow that for the remainder of the course. As Tuesdays will be reviews and kind of an overview of our work week, and then Wednesday will be the actual project demonstration, so I'll actually put that together. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow, putting that thing together. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. That's all I got, though. Unless anybody has any questions, we will see you tomorrow. Good.